Hey everybody, Jonathan White back with another video. This week for session 3, for the informative speech, I picked the topic of the benefits of bodyweight training. So a new year coming up right around the corner here, and with a new year comes a resolution. One of the most common resolutions, we'll use the word traditional resolutions, is to get into shape, lose some extra pounds, get fit, one of those things. But how does one do that when we have Christmas right before, and Christmas typically leaves us feeling a little bit empty, or I don't want to use the word shallow, it's just a little bit empty or dry in the bank account or in the pocket. The answer to that, we don't have to always have fancy equipment or a specific place, like getting a gym membership or even hiring a personal trainer to do those things, because that can be very pricey. But we have bodyweight training, which we'll get into some of that when we talk about the benefits, and we don't necessarily need all those things. So, a article titled "Conquering Calisthenics in Muscle and Fitness Magazine" actually lists 5 reasons that a person should use bodyweight exercises. The first one is it burns more calories. So if we're trying to get into shape, we're trying to shed those extra pounds, we're going to use bodyweight exercise actually uses more energy than a traditional workout or traditional weight training. And using that energy is actually what's going to burn the calories. Reason number 2, it develops a stronger core. Stronger core is good because it helps with our equilibrium, it helps with balance, which actually can lead to some more of the complicated bodyweight style training or exercises, and can actually help you improve when you're using your traditional weight training if you choose to move on to those types of things. It builds muscle. Any repetitious movement of any muscle group or any muscle itself, the expanding and the contracting, is going to build that muscle bigger, and it is going to develop strength. The different training stimuli, again, traditional weight training, we'll kind of get into some of the differences here in a second, but it's going to be a little bit different than what you would normally see, guys like Arnold or Jay Cutler, some of these bigger bodybuilder types, when they get in there and do this traditional thing. It's a little bit different stimuli. And my favorite is it's used by the Navy SEALs. Of course, that should be number 1, right? No, not necessarily, but the reason that Muscle Fitness mentions this is the Navy SEALs find themselves in field conditions. I myself in the military have been in field conditions. No, I'm not a Navy SEAL, but I've been in field conditions where you can't always get to the gym, you can't always use equipment, you can't do these things, but in the military, we are expected to maintain a certain level of fitness. And how do we do that if we can't get to these other areas? Well, we use bodyweight training. Matter of fact, we're tested on these types of exercises every year to determine our fitness level. The Navy SEALs themselves and their fitness plan actually have an entire chapter dedicated on it. We have entire regulations and systems designed around this concept. So what is bodyweight training exactly? Well, bodyweight training has been around for thousands of years and has been used by the ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, and the ancient Egyptians. These are the guys that brought us some of the most ferocious warriors ever recorded in history. Not only that, but they brought some of the most elite athletes in history. We have things like the Olympic Games, started in Greece, or the Gladiator Games, which again is a warrior thing, but when you're fighting for your life, and these guys, the way they work out, they're in prison. They don't always have the way, different ways to do this. And again, it was ancient times. Technology that we see now didn't necessarily exist then, of course. So, bodyweight training is built up of what's called calisthenics. No equipment, just you and doing these types of exercises. Push-ups, sit-ups, very common exercises. Jump training. This includes box jumps is one of the more common ones used now, but it's things like jumping jacks, squat thrusts, things of that nature. And then yoga listed down there at the bottom, because anytime you're working out and you're contracting those muscles, you're actually going to need to stretch them out and do some of those other things to maintain that core that we talked about in the previous slide. So now that we've talked about what bodyweight training actually is, let's get into the heart of the presentation and talk about the actual benefits of using bodyweight training. So there's 2 that we're going to talk about. There's many benefits, but we're only going to talk about 2 for the sake of time. The physical benefits is the first one we're going to talk about, is an obvious benefit of any kind of fitness or training that you're going to do. First is cardiovascular health. Jim Stoppani, who is an advisor for bodybuilding.com and some of these other things, has his own supplement lines. He actually is quoted as saying, "The heart is the most important muscle in the body." That is because it carries oxygen through the blood to the different muscle groups and actually makes the other muscles work by doing so. And then we have the strength improvements, which was also mentioned earlier in the presentation. The repetitious contracting or repetitious movements of the muscle groups. Now the difference between body weight training and traditional weight training, where you're actually on a bench press or on a preacher curl bench and you're doing these things, it actually only focuses on one joint and one muscle group at a time. Body weight training is very dynamic and actually focuses on multiple joints and multiple muscle groups all at the same time. It's a little bit more functional for everyday life because your body is constantly working together, and the body weight training focuses more on that rather than on that isolated muscle group. Not that that's not beneficial, it's just the difference between the two. That was actually found excuse me while I get you the source here, an article, Bodyweight Training Back to Basics, and it was in the Strength and Conditioning Journal. So Gaston, bodyweight training is not going to necessarily make you as big as Gaston there, but it is going to give you some strength. But my favorite benefit is the financial benefit. Again, we're talking about not necessarily needing fancy equipment or the gym membership or a personal trainer, not to pay for anything. You just need you and a place to do it, not a specific place. Interesting thing about bodyweight training is that it is designed, any kind of calisthenics is designed around the unique composition of that individual. So in conclusion, we discussed what bodyweight exercises actually are, the physical and the financial benefits of it all. But don't just take my word for it, guys. Get out there, try it for yourself. And just a personal note, I like to use it as a time of self-reflection and prayer and spending one-on-one time for the Lord. All of my information was found in these 3 references here on the screen. Again, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. God bless you all.